Lineardraft Design Catalogues, often referred to simply as catalogues, contain the key overhead line electrification components belonging to a particular design range. If there's a design range you'd like to use in Lineardraft for which we don't currently have a catalogue, you can request the creation of a new catalogue. If we proceed with your request, this is how a Lineardraft catalogue is made. We've adopted a phased approach to catalogue creation, so there are clear expectations and goals at each phase. There are no predefined timescales for these phases, as they will vary from catalogue to catalogue. Once the new catalogue request has been evaluated and passed over to our technical team, they'll conduct a thorough investigation of the proposed contents of the catalogue and identify any arrangements or engineering capability unique to the items and/or design range.
We'll begin by reviewing all of the information that's been provided at this point, and we'll be taking a look at what does this catalogue contain. Are there any gaps in the catalogue that we then need to take a look at, investigate further and potentially fill? We'll be having a look at whether there's any development work required to provide additional functionality that Lineardraft doesn't currently possess, if we decide that that is a necessary part of the catalogue. And all of this, we'll be keeping the goal of maintaining a positive user experience for the new catalogue.
Even though you may be able to provide all of the drawings for the proposed catalogue items, our engineers will look to gain access to the design range directly where applicable, so they can do a thorough first-hand investigation. Upon completion of the investigation phase, the team will share their findings with you, discuss the proposed contents of the catalogue, along with any identified unique arrangements or engineering capability, and understand the requirements of the project or projects you'll be using the catalogue on. Any essential development work to improve engineering capability in Lineardraft to facilitate an intuitive implementation of the catalogue will also be discussed.
After those discussions, we'll be able to review the full scope of the catalogue that we've identified and the deliverables that encompasses. We'll also take away the development work that we identified and hold an internal meeting where we can review those proposals, and should they be confirmed, we can begin to plan all of these items and start to establish some initial timelines which may be subject to change.
So why do we hold an internal review for the proposed development work?
The main reason we do it is to understand the way Lineardraft can facilitate a specific catalogue, and we evaluate whether the approach that can be taken can be purely data-driven, i.e. engineering-based, or whether it needs to be functionality changes to the way Lineardraft works. So it's more of a feasibility review. It's all about balancing the representation of the catalogue and the componentry versus giving the user ultimate flexibility of the componentry. Because if you give them ultimate flexibility, you lose all automation, and if you give them no flexibility and it's completely compromised, then the user isn't able to do or complete a full design. Those initial meetings are to get the balance right, basically, between functionality and customization and automation and repeatability.
With the catalogue contents and scope established, the new catalogue enters production. The work is produced in packages over 2 phases. The first is the initial production phase, which focuses on creating enough items to allow users to work on early stage or outline designs. The time taken and number of work packages required will be dependent on the size and complexity of the catalogue.
The initial production phase will typically include masts, foundations and gantries, and subject to the complexity of the catalogue may also include backties, ornaments, catenary and auxiliary systems and in-span equipment.
Once the work is complete, there will be an initial production release, so users can get started on their designs, whilst work on the next production phase commences.
Depending on the scale of the catalogue, there may be interim releases, however, there will always be at least one final release for this phase.
The final phase of work is called the final production phase, which focuses on the creation of all the items required to be able to produce a detailed design with the catalogue. Once again, the time taken and number of work packages required will be dependent on the size and complexity of the catalogue.
This phase will typically include brackets, SPS, drop tubes and catenary and auxiliary wire support. However, depending on the complexity of the catalogue, it may also include backties, ornaments, catenary and auxiliary systems and in-span equipment.
Once again, depending on the size of the catalogue, there may be more interim releases during the final production phase, but there will always be at least one at the end of the phase. But what about the development work? When does that get produced and released?
The required development work will be produced throughout the catalogue production phases, with an aim for a software release to coincide with the final catalogue release.
The final production release marks the end of the production phases. The design catalogue is complete, but work on the catalogue is certainly not completed. All of our active catalogues are continuously maintained and updated with priority given to user requests, whether adding or updating items or adding item linkages, so the catalogue can be utilised on many more future projects.